pick 10, if I remember correctly. Listeners will, as always, correct us if we are wrong. So we're just going to carry on rolling here the way we did it last time. Go through pick by pick, give an analysis of where we feel the team is at, where they may look, and in doing so, kind of give you a broader picture of where prospects are in that range. Give our feeling on position groups in general, the prospects, and just use the teams as a jumping off point, which takes us to the 11th pick in the draft, which is the Washington football team. I'm going to continue to call them because I refuse to acknowledge that nickname that they have decided for themselves. And I'm going to wait for whenever Jay-Z winds up buying that team and Congress takes it from Dan Snyder and we get a real name. That is when I will return to whatever the football name is at the moment, which I'm actually blanking on as we speak. Is how bad I am at this.
Commanders.
Oh, there we go. That's correct. The Commies. That's right. I will call them the Washington Commies. That I will do. So looking at kind of their teamies, the thing everyone jumps to after they do the Carson Wentz deal is, do they go and get a wide receiver? There's obviously the Terry McLaurin situation. What are they going to do with the contract there? Do they go and get a receiver to pair with that? They could do with any kind of help in the defensive backfield. They had ludicrous linebacker issues last year that they really liked their linebackers. They were just terrible last season. Could they go and look at a Devon Lloyd or something? Where are you at with Washington?
Yeah, I think receiver and linebacker. I think, Ron Rivera talked a lot last year about the need for a Mike linebacker, which is, I don't think an insignificant utterance from a guy who played with Luke Kuechly for a long time. So, I think that certainly has got to be front and center. And you make the point, and I think it's so fascinating, and I don't know whether it's going to happen, but you look at the Tyreek Hill trade, you look at the fact that Deebo Samuel might get moved. There's been talk about Terry McLaurin. It's a good receiver draft, but you look at Green Bay Packers, you look at teams that are out there looking for receivers, and Washington absolutely comes into this. And then if they don't get involved in a trade for a Samuel or for for an AJ Brown or whoever might potentially be out there, you look at who's going to fit their needs in terms of stylistically what they like. Are they going to go for those bigger guys like a Drake London, a big tall frame sort of power forward of a wide receiver who can go out and win at the catch point, win above the rim, can make great yards after catch. You watch his USC tape and he's just bouncing off guys once he gets the ball in his hands like a running back, picking up extra yards, first downs, touchdowns. Or are they going to look for a Garrett Wilson or a Chris Olave, somebody who runs, just better routes in terms of their footwork, in terms of how they use their body and their heads and their shoulders to get open in terms of their route tree. I think you're tossing up between a linebacker and a wide receiver. And if I had to plumb for it, I might say Drake London, I have to say. But I think for somebody like Ron Rivera to look at Devon Lloyd out there and think, I can pair him with Jamin Davis, who I took in the first round last year. And that all of a sudden makes that linebacker core look significantly better. So I suspect from my point of view, I'd probably just side more on the linebacker.
I'll come back onto the linebackers in just a second, and we'll just I just want to talk about Drake London a little bit more. I've had a real epiphany in the last 18 months about these wide receivers. I think we spoke about this at some point on the main show, where I now just want the guys who get open, right? I remember the last time I was working this full time, just getting burnt by Laquan Treadwell. I love the above the rim guy. I love watching them in college, and you picture in your head like N'Keal Harry. Oh, he's going to dominate 3x1 backside. You get a 6-foot corner on him. That's the biggest they're going to have on the other side of the ball. And we'll just throw a slant, it'll post up, and we'll rip it in there and happy days. And it's just been bust after bust for the post up guys. And you go through some of the Drake London numbers, and his contested catch rate is like 80%. It's like the guy is not open at the college level. And I am more and more kind of defaulting to this position of, get me the guys who, no matter how detailed, nuanced the route tree was in college, none of them outside of the Ohio State guys are running really, clever, intricate route trees or doing deep option stuff like they do at Ohio State and having to think on the fly along with the quarterback and, read leverage and that kind of thing. They're all running to predetermined spots at this point and not a lot of predetermined spots. So I kind of just want the guy who is wide open and we'll figure the rest out. That's why I just love Sky Moore so much. It's like, give me the quick foot shuffler who's immediately open, right? And then we'll get him the ball. He can figure out how to turn right and left in the league, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, I think Moore's such an interesting name as well, isn't he? Such an interesting player. For those that don't know, the Western Michigan kid, converted corner, just 2 years of experience, but he's a high IQ, twitchy route runner, isn't he? Who can just get open. I think you can play him inside, you can play him outside. He's got a nice ceiling. He reminds me of Doug Baldwin. I don't know if you've got a player comparison to him.
I think Edelman with a little bit more twitch. And if you said now you knew who Edelman was and the way the game has gone, would you take him in the first round? Yes, of course I would take Julian Edelman.
100%.
So that's where I'm at with him. The only thing I'll say with London, and I am only slightly lower on him than other people because of that point, and it's not fair to Drake London, and this is how draft analysis works. It is the personal burn of getting burnt by Laquan Treadwell and N'Keal Harry, and it's got nothing to do with the poor fellow who plays at USC, right? That's just how this goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I way preferred the 2020 route distribution and where they put him. He moved all across the formation because I think he's being kind of pigeonholed as the 3x1 backside guy, and it kind of DK Metcalf, right? Not exactly the same vertical speed, but what you would hope to be able to isolate him and then take advantage of a matchup is kind of where he's being put in this draft class. I way prefer when they moved him around. I think there's plenty more to squeeze out of him there that we've not actually seen yet. And that is what would get me excited. I say, okay, if I put him in a condensed split and I can get him off the line clean, then that's going to be really hard. And I think if he goes in this range where he's expected to go 8 and down, you want him to go to an organization who is a bit more nimble and a bit more creative with his usage, rather than just saying, yeah, you line up on the backside and we'll throw you, some ISO routes every now and then.
Yeah, I love what Graham Harrell did with him in 2020, where he played him much more in the slot to take advantage of those sort of mismatches, but actually played more outside in 2021. I just think he's I really like him off the field as well. I just think he's got that kind of, he's got an NFL brain. He's been somebody that's worked really hard off the field in terms of the little bits of his game, the minutiae of his game. He spends a lot of time studying and working with guys like Mike Evans and Michael Thomas for hands, Evans for physicality. He's worked on his route running, all of those things. He's also really young. He's a baby. He's not going to be 2021 until early in the he's not going to be 21 until early in the 2022 season. There's a lot of 20s and 2021s in there. Let me say that again. He is going to be 21 years old early in the 2022 season. So he's a baby in terms of, where he's at. So I just think it's going to come down. I mean, who do you think is going to be the first receiver off the board? That to me is just such a fascinating question, because you've got the big guys, the Burks, the Londons, you've got the little guys, in inverted commas, the Olaves, the Wilsons, you've got kind of the Jameson Williams, the speed guy. Then you kind of, people talking about Christian Watson, people talking about Sky Moore, people talking about, how do you see it playing out?
I really think it comes down to whoever has the power in an organization, which I know sounds a bit ominous, but it's like, if a coach is the in charge guy, like Ron Rivera, I think they take a Chris Olave. I think the smoothness, you just go gaga watching him, and it's teaching tape on every single rep. He's smoother than everyone else, and that just gets you all excited. If it's the GM, where it's like a capital situation, how am I allocating my resources? You say, go get me that guy from USC with a little bit of extra stuff still in there. And as you said, he's 21. So he's going to be 26 by the end of this contract. Now it works now. We'll probably have to trade him for 2 first-round picks when he's 25. That just seems like a better use of resources. My guy is Jameson Williams, right? I just think that in terms of what you could get out of him, game tilting speed, not necessarily Tyreek Hill, no one is, but the kind of impact on your entire offense and the geography and landscape of your offense, I think Jameson can have the biggest impact on that. So that's the guy I would want on my team. But obviously with the ACL tear, not knowing the medical, he's likely to go, I think, 16 downwards, maybe even get to the 20s in Green Bay, which would be the most delightful spot if you're a neutral. So that would be the guy I would be working back. This is the thing, right? We spoke about this last week. They're all so good that you start talking to yourself saying, well, do we take the one that we love at 11, or do we just get ourselves down to the 20s and take one of the other ones we love, who's ever is 3rd or 4th on the board?
When I was doing the draft guide and watching the tape and whatever, and you're like, wow, I love X. And then you're like, I'm going to have to put him at number 2 or number 1. And then you're like, wow, Traylon Burks against Alabama. Dude, you are like, everybody's saying you can't run, and you're running away from DeMarco Hallams, and you're running away from Battle, and you're running away from Armour Davis and Josh Jobe. And then you put on, oh, God, go back and watch Olave again. You're like, God, you're so smooth and slick. And then it's like watch Christian Watson down the field, like just destroying people, blocking down the field. And you're like, wow, what? And like seeing him run out at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, like stood in the bleachers, and out he comes. I'm like, who is this guy? Look at his arms, and he's so like cut in terms of musculature, in terms of like, he looks like he looks like a Greek god. It was like, crikey, and you can play, and he's working out with the cornerbacks in front of me, and you're like, God, your footwork is fantastic as well. It's just, there's
Watson's the most terrifying one. It's where you're like looking at him going, are we gonna be sat here in 3 years saying that's Metcalf, not Calvin Johnson as in the production? No one ever will be, probably, but like that level of single game dominance where he just gets into a game where no one can cover him and he goes for 200 yards. But then why did he only play 35% of his offensive snaps at North Dakota State? It's such a puzzling situation with him where you just want to get him to Green Bay, right? I know I'm trying to send all these guys to Green Bay, but it's like the most fun in the league is if they get that guy to Green Bay and he figures it out.
How are you 6'4" and 208 pounds and have a 30% catch win rate on contested catches? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's an issue. You have 16 career drops. That's an issue, especially given the size of your hands. But it's just given how run oriented that Bison offense was, 57 plays in his career that went 20 plus yards. You know what I mean? I mean, 57 is a lot. That's a big number. Do you know what I mean? And then blocking ability at the line of scrimmage, the way you look at the Rams, how the Rams motion receivers down to take on the big edges and stuff, and do some great blocking work at the line of scrimmage. You see him doing that. You see him, blocking down the field, like I just said. Really intriguing prospect. And we haven't even mentioned George Pickens, who, issues.
Lord knows where he goes. Lord knows. I mean, it really would not shock me. He is the best in the nation. Any receiver, any age group, understanding pre-snap what the coverage principle is. It is so difficult in college. They run so many combination and match coverages because they have guys for 3 years and they've got Nick Saban every day yelling in their face, right? And the best defensive back coach in America telling them every day, we're running these really complicated, intricate combination coverages. And to read that out in real time, which is all that Pickens does, it's a false step here, so you bite this way and I'm going this way. Because I know, based on your alignment, that you're matching me vertical on this one and you'll let me go underneath. So I'm going to press vertical with the outside foot. You're going to try and match me there and then I'm inside. That is not normal, right? And then you get it in that frame. It's like, wow, it's one of those ones where it reminds me of Justin Blackman in a way. It's like, I want to take that guy in the top 5 with the talent. And then I'm like, but the injuries, that's a real tough one.
The off field as well. There was some serious, I spoke to a number of scouts just about, because the stuff you just can't get to in terms of information and, volatile, like I put in the draft, but volatile is the word that came back to me, more than twice from people. There was an issue in high school that legally I probably can't talk about, but there you'll be able to find it if you Google it. He had a whatever it was, and there were other issues apart from this one thing. Hot head tag coming out of high school that suspended. I mean, he had the fight with Ken Swilling's son in the Georgia Tech game. He multiple personal foul penalties throughout his career. He squirted water in Jarrett Garantano's face. Like, he would sort of, for a badly thrown ball or an incompletion that came his way, sort of throw his hands up, or he'd remonstrate to the quarterback, and he just were like, and we talk about Kadarius Toney earlier on, and some of those things.
It's hard. The worst one for him is all the coaching stuff, because I don't think NFL GMs care that much about the on the field stuff. It looks bad, but I think they'd be like, whatever. The coaching stuff where he's fighting coaches, not in meetings, doesn't give a shit. He's like, yeah, I'm smarter than all you guys. That's the one where you're like, we can just find guys. It's the NFL, right? They all look like physical specimens. We'll just go get another guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, where he could be anything. He could be anything he wants to be. If he switched on mentally, he could be anything he wants to be. But that's a pretty big question.
I wanted to come back to Devon Lloyd, and we will rattle through picks, but this is more of a general oversight in terms of the linebacker class. We've talked ad nauseum since we started doing this pod together about how the changing nature of defensive structures in college football, the volume of 3 safety sets, and how everyone's kind of running a unique defense at the moment. We're in this transition period where Georgia's doing their thing, but Utah's doing this thing. Now Notre Dame's doing this thing, and they're not all aligned up. It's not like it used to be where, a block of 12 schools ran the 4-2-5, a block of 15 schools were running Saban's 3-match coverage, and they, you can kind of neatly slot them in. They're all kind of tweaking and figuring out as they go, and we're getting all these different body types coming out. Then you go to the NFL where the same thing is happening, particularly in terms of run fits. How they're fitting the run is getting different team to team. When you used to really have about 2 or 3 ways, you could kind of pinpoint, that's the Belichick model, that's this model. Particularly as teams try to address the wide zone issue where we're all playing with bare fronts. Are we playing 6-1? Are we playing 5-2? Are we uncapping the guards? Are we capping the guards? This is the kind of conversations they're all having. And it means you need a specific thing for each one of them, right? So I'm going through this linebacker class and I'm like, well, if you need a very specific thing, it completely changes your draft board, where if you're playing against uncapped guards where the job is to Dante Hightower through someone's face as they pull around the corner, you don't need Nakobe Dean. So all of a sudden, he's just off the board. And so your linebacker class kind of pushes up in a way where your 4th guy might be Kay Walker, might think you can get him in the second round. Your third guy might be Chad Muma, and you think you can get him in the fourth round. So that's a real discussion here. The only one who I think is that special is Devon Lloyd, where I'm like, I maybe would do that in the first round, but I'm at the point where it's so talented. You take Brandon Smith and you say, you played this overhang, apex cover down role, as they say in coaching parlance. Well, if I move you to Miami and you're basically playing as a mug linebacker for 50% of the game, getting into passing lanes, that's a completely different alignment spacing to what you've ever experienced in the college game, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like linebacker is getting to the point where it's very much like interior guards, where you're like, you would love to have the Quentin Nelson, but because it's so specific now schematically to what you do, that I'd rather just go find one in the third or fourth round. And to me, it's a really deep linebacker class too.
I agree. I think the thing that's fascinating is the evolution of size at linebacker as well. I mean, even 5-8 years ago, look at this class now, and I'll scroll through it, but, Nakobe Dean at 5'11", 229. I know he's your 2, he's my 1. Channing Tindall's 228 pounds. Whereas Christian Harris is, 226, 6 foot, 226. Brian Asamoah, what's Asamoah? 220, 6 foot 220. Jojo Doman at 6'1", 228. You've got these guys, 226 for Jeremiah Gamel of North Carolina. You've got all these guys that they'd be safeties 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the evolution of size and speed and the ability to get to landmarks, and I think, and I haven't studied it, and you probably have, but going through the centre class this year, there's so many centres that are under 300 pounds.
Yeah.
You go back 10, 15 years, looking at centres as significantly bigger guys. And I think that's spilling down to, we don't tend to have nearly as bigger guards as we used to in terms of, I'll go back, Larry Allen's and those sorts of guys. I don't think that's, so the ability for the speed and the instincts and the eye work of those linebackers, you can almost kind of take off 10 pounds because you're all right with the guy being 226, because that instinctively, or his eyes, or his how he sees the game, how he processes, is going to get him to that landmark quicker than it would have done if he's carrying that extra 15 pounds or whatever. It's a fascinating sort of subplot to how you build a roster with what we would traditionally call undersized players.
And now what's mad about it is the body types in the NFL are all over the place, because as I was saying about how they fit in the run-up, where JOK and Devondre Campbell look like two different sports, right? 100%. But they're two great linebackers, right? Because they fit the run in a different way. They don't need to have the same overlapping skill set. What is happening in the league is we're all playing with a 5-man front or a 6-man front. So are you playing on the are you walking to the edge when we have to move to that because of motion? Or are you the off-ball guy who's kind of like saying, reading it out and just kind of hitting it up wherever you have to hit it up? Because no one's really penetrating through the middle unless you're mugging and it's like some kind of run blitz. So it's fascinating. You look at the best players of last year, though, and they're all pretty massive with wingspan, because the league has decided that thing where we tried to do the matchup, where we tried to get someone who could cover Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham, that was a whiff, right? Because they're just better than us and they know where they're going.
We've been waiting for 3 years. It's just...
So now we're spot dropping, and so we're doing the NBA shit where it's like, just get your arms in passing lanes. So go get me a guy with the biggest wingspan, and we'll just drop him out like Miami does. We're up on the line of scrimmage and we're dropping out. And we're not trying to match anyone. We're just throwing our arms in the air and hoping that we kind of make it muggy and weird for the quarterback. So as I'm saying, going through it, Brandon Smith, I think he's 10th on your board, right? I think. But if you're running a specific system, he's probably the second or third guy just because of the body type. So I say all that to say, I think what we're going to get over the next 2-3 years, and you see this with last year's class too,
seventh on the board.
Is 7th on the board. Okay. On someone's board, I reckon he's second or third.
Yeah, and they hope 20 years old as well. Yes. He's another 20-year-old.
Former 5-star, which they all love. They all go, we'll coach him up properly. He wasn't coached up properly. I know he's played out the box. It was a bizarre situation at that size.
And for me, it was just consistency more than anything. Do you know what I mean? He was a 12th overall prospect, regardless of position. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Virginia. It's like, he's got so much talent, but he's just a baby. He's so athletic. We're at 4.52.40 at the combine. And that's not an anomaly. He's just as fast on tape as he is, on the track. He's a really interesting player, but completely. And you go back 5, 8, 10 years, taking on climbing linemen, it's I've got to take you on physically. I've got to lock out. I've got to get on. Now it's just I can run around you because I'm 228 pounds and I run 4.42 like a Troy Anderson. I know Anderson's bigger at 2.49, but Nakobe Dean runs in a 4.4. Devon Lloyd runs a 4.4/4.5. You can just get to those landmarks quicker. You can get ahead of those climbing linemen. You don't have to go 3 guys all the time, and that's just a small facet of that evolution of the game that we talk about.
And it sounds daft to say fit is important, but like that position has become fit is everything. That's the point. And so where I'm at with it now is like you go through this class and you say, okay, the stars are Devon Lloyd and Kobe Dean, right? Everyone's got them in their top tier of linebackers, and it depends which one you prefer, right? But with fit being so essential, I think we're going to get so many more busts in that star category that I'm saying there. And the value is going to be in that third or fourth round of saying, let's just wait and get a guy who fits our athletic profile, who we know ran a similar run fit scheme to us in college. We'll ask them, we'll get on the whiteboard, and we'll just swoop and get one in the fourth round. So going back to the 11th pick, which we've taken half an hour to get through, it's like, I just don't know if there's great value anymore. As much as my whole thing, I spent 3 years of my career doing off-ball linebackers. That was my whole thing. And I used to watch him go, diagnose and attack instincts. Can he drop into zone, and does he drive on the ball? Because he knew beforehand that in-break was coming in the intermediate phase. Did he read the screen and fire out there? And as you said, hit the landmark before the ball even got there. Now, I'm just like, I just don't think that you need to do that in the first round anymore. I really don't.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. And you look at how we talked about, Ian, you mentioned it about the tight end eliminator. Isaiah Simmons was this is a guy who's going to eliminate tight ends forever. And it's just like, no, it's not worked. There's a reason Rob Gronkowski is the first ballot Hall of Famer, because nobody's ever been able to eliminate him. And, I just don't think it's you can't do it. You can't do it. So who are we going for with Washington then?
With Washington, man, I reckon that they would. I mean, if you just try to picture in your head, you have this quarterback who doesn't know where he's throwing the ball, so you got no idea where it's going. It's like, so do you get the wingspan guy, or do you get the open guy? I don't know if any of that helps, honestly, in that system. But if you know you have McLaurin, I do like the idea of going big little. It's like old school NBA. But I also do love, if I draft Olave, 2 guys are probably open on every play.
And you got to think that Carson Wentz isn't going to be around forever unless he, has an incredible rebirth that I don't think any of us think is necessarily going to happen. And even if the guy is open, I don't think he's necessarily shown that he can hit it anyway. So maybe it is the big guy who can just go, and get those misplaced balls.